Hello, everybody. It's Mr. Odom, and I am going to uh, go over um, section 2.2, which is adding rational numbers. As always, you'll need a pencil, your composition book or notebook paper, and a calculator. And the learning target for this video is I can add rational numbers. My pen's not working. Here we go. I can add rational numbers, which really means, hey, you know what? I know how to add positive and negative fractions. I can add mixed numbers, whether they're positive or negative. I can add them to each other. I can add decimals. I can have positive decimals to negative decimals to negative decimals, positive decimals to positive decimals. The list goes on and on. So let's go ahead and get started. So just a reminder from chapter 1, those rules actually apply here. To add rational numbers, we're going to use the same rules for signs that you used for integers. So remember the song, same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number, then you'll be exact, boom, right? We're only going to use that song when we're talking about the numerator. But remember, when we add fractions, what do we have to have? That's right. When we add fractions, we have to make sure that we have a common denominator. Denominator. And I know that you remember that. And that's all, really. So let's go ahead and practice. Let's solve a few of these. Practice makes permanent. So I am going to work out a couple of these problems, and then I'm going to leave the rest to you. All right, so let me work out problem number 1. So number 1, I have negative 7/8 plus 1/4. So the first thing I ask myself, I say, self, can you add those fractions together or those rational numbers together? And the answer is no. And the reason is because look at these denominators. They are not the same. So I have to make sure that they are the same. So I'm going to do that. The common denominator would be, or a common denominator would be 8. And all I have to do is multiply this numerator by 2, this denominator by 2, and I end up with, what do I get? 2/8. So I have negative 7/8 plus 2/8. And then what I'm going to do, now that I have a common denominator, I'm going to combine the numerators. And this negative sign right here is going to attach itself to the 7. So now it becomes negative 7 plus 2. And so this part, now I remember same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract. So I'm going to subtract those absolute values. I'm going to take the larger absolute value, subtract the smaller. So I end up with negative 5 because I keep the sign of the bigger absolute value. And remember the absolute value, let me write this down here. The absolute value of negative 7 is 7, and the absolute value of 2 is 2. So 7 minus 2 is 5. And then I keep the sign of the bigger number, or the bigger absolute value. Okay, so there's my bigger absolute value right there. So there's my answer. And I'm going to write it, as I mentioned in previous videos, I'm going to put the negative sign in front of the rational number. So it's negative 5/8. So there is my answer. Okay, let's look at number 5. Decimals. And for decimals, all you're going to do is you're just going to use your calculator. So negative 8.15 or negative 8 and 15 hundredths plus negative 4.3, or negative 4 3/10. And so what am I going to do here? Same sign, add and keep. So I'm going to add the absolute values of these two numbers together and keep the sign, which means the answer is going to be negative. All right, so I can put this in my calculator. I'll get negative 12.45, and I'm good. Okay, so you can check it if you want. So I'm going to leave the rest of these problems for you to work out, and I will provide an answer for you. So we'll come back in a minute or so, and we'll continue. Okay, we're back. Let's see, what is the answer to number 2? Let's see, if you got 1/3, then you got it right. Nice. What's the answer to number 3? Negative 1 1/2. What's the answer to number 4? So this one, I'll put an equal sign there, equals 2.8. And then what about number 6? The answer to this one is negative 2.1. So did you guys get all these right? I hope so. And if you didn't, then tomorrow, when we go over or have our quick meeting together, I will answer your questions, and we can work out some more problems together in our meeting. All right, so let's move on. Here's another type of problem that we have where we have to evaluate an expression. Remember the difference between an expression and an equation? Remember, equations are things like b plus 4a equals something. What do you want? 726. This is an equation because of the equal sign. Okay, so if you don't see an equal sign, then these are expressions. But we can evaluate expressions if I tell you what the variables are. And we actually do that in this problem. Here, a is 1/2, b is negative 5/2. So let me work out problem number 8 for you, and then you can work out problem number 7. So problem 8, it says evaluate the expression when a equals 1/2, b equals negative 5/2. So here's problem 8. Let me write this down. Absolute value of a plus b. So in the absolute values, I have to work this out. 1/2 plus negative 5/2. So I work out this part first, and then when I'm done, I take the absolute value of whatever's inside the absolute value signs. All right, so I have absolute value. Is there a common denominator here? Yes. Woohoo! Exciting. So I can combine the numerators. 1 plus, remember this negative sign is going to attach itself to the 5. So 1 plus negative 5 all over 2. And what does that equal? Well, it's the absolute value, 1 plus negative 5. Same sign, add and keep. Different sign subtract. So I have a positive number and a negative number. So I'm going to take the absolute values. Absolute value of 1 is 1. Absolute value of negative 5 is 5. And I subtract the smaller absolute value from the larger. So I end up with 4, and I keep the sign of the bigger absolute value, which would be negative, and then that would be over 2. And we can continue. We can simplify this. I can write this as negative 4 over 2. And the absolute value of any number, I'm absolutely positive that absolute value is always positive. So this would just be 4 over 2. And can you simplify this? Yes, you can. So this is just 2. Okay, so we're going to pause for a moment, and you are going to work out problem number 7. Okay, so we're back, and the answer to problem number 7, if you work that one out correctly, you should get -1/2. All right, so that's it for this video. I enjoyed working with you, and I look forward to seeing you guys in Google Meet or Zoom or in the class or wherever, or even Safeway. All right, this is Mr. Odom. I'm out.